part of it is just this frustration with a lot of rugby coverage that almost all of it, again, certainly in the UK, is aimed at like middle-aged men who drive Land Rovers. It's aimed at like the same demographic, the same market, and I wanted to do something that felt more, like it was aimed at something that I would want to watch rather than having to watch because I want to watch the game.
I think the minute I stepped on a practice field for rugby, the calling happened.
An 8-year plan to be on the team, and I was in it within 2 years.
Don't wait until you are a pro to be a pro, right?
Like, I like doing something and stopping and learning from it.
Like, it just looked like it was a heavy hit.
To give up, it's not up.
You know, that's the first time I played like professionally.
I'm making rugby money. How can I make money outside of it?
And there was 2 Scottish guys, and they said, "Oh, you're here for the movie."
Rugby is a sport where that's often coupled with actually having a good time.
He looked at me and he says, "You guys are off."
Grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Grow Rugby. My name is GiftTime Ibelu, and this is the show where we talk to people about the opportunities that they have found, created, or taken advantage of via rugby. Also, please, guys, if you guys enjoy this, please hit that subscribe button, throw in a little bit of the notification, and for my ego's sake, because I'm so much in need of just some good tries, can you hit that like button and just tell your friend a little bit about this. Guys, we have an amazing guest for you today. This one is one of the most popular ones, I think, within the rugby community that we've had. And we've had some great ones. I mean, we've had some amazing guests. So this goes right on par with everybody else. You guys might know him best by his unique videos that analyze rugby down to a point. It's an amazing breakdown. You get to be able to see it. It's very shareable, very humorous, very hilarious. You know, I got the chance to talk to my guy, Robbie Owens, a.k.a. Squidge Rugby. You guys don't know him, this guy, he has gotten millions of views on YouTube, thousands of followers on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube again. Like, he has become a penchant within the rugby community, both as an analyst and slowly as a voice of the community, and a really good guy. This legitimately was a great conversation. We had a great time being able to talk, and especially for someone who's done, you know, basically the same interview over and over again, I think we were able to just get to enjoy this even more. It was just chill, but we got to get the big questions. We got those nice questions, because every time when you do these things, people want to know, like, what's that next step? So this one was definitely well worth it. If you guys are watching, I know it was late last week. Actually, but it didn't even happen. I thought we were going to be able to get it out, but if you're watching the video, you're going to see that I am clearly not at home right now, and tis the issue sometimes. Sometimes you just don't get the chance to do what you want to do. And but I've been in Mexico, still am in Mexico for right now, and but I want to make sure to get it in at least this week because I care. It's about you guys, doing wedding stuff out here. Yeah, I wish it was rugby stuff as well too, but I enjoy the wedding stuff because it allows for some good time and good family time. So, but I'm not gonna hold you guys up too much longer. Please again, I thank you guys for your patience. Thank you guys for working with me. But more importantly, I hope you guys enjoy this. Robbie Owens, Squidge Rugby, the legend, the GOAT. Check it out.
Grow rugby, 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 grow rugby.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Grow Rugby. I got another V, an incredibly V, a super I, and the people of the P's. Robbie Owens, a Squidge Rugby. I know there's other stuff I can say, but we're going to have the intro. But I just wanted to bring it in right now. Robbie, man, thank you so much for coming through, brother.
Thank you. No, when you started introducing Incredible Guest, I thought someone else was on as well. I thought there must be someone else lined up as well. I hope I can live up to that introduction.
Look, there was actually the guy, Robbie, right behind you. I didn't know. I was just trying to get it out to him. My bad, dude. Look,
yeah, it's like, the guy stood behind me. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
It's all good. It's
yeah,
all good,
no,
you know.
he did. Yeah, it turns out he's won 3 World Cups, so it's like.
It makes sense. See,
Kieran Reid
it
took
was
the hype,
it was trying to.
Yeah.
No, but no, man. Look, I appreciate you coming.
Me, yeah.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Like, you know, it's one of those things where I love being. I always tell people where you see him first or how you met him, but you know, I actually ran into. My friend actually told me about your stuff before we went for the Rugby World Cup. So this was about early 2019, give or take.
Yeah.
Early 2019, late 2018, and so he was like, "Yo, you need to look at this guy, Squidge Rugby, man. He's breakdown. This is like my sense of humor." And I was like, "All right, let's see what we got here." And then I'm like, "Yo, this feels like something out of Cartoon Network. Like this feels like from Toonami or something like that." I was like, the sound effects. I was like, I like this. I like this because I'll say like there's typically always like a UK sense of humor, and it was that, and then it was just like a perfect mixture of goofy and educational. Which I look, I gotta give you credit, man. Like this is a hard one to do with rugby, and yo, you kill it. You absolutely kill it, bro.
Oh, thank you. Oh, cheers. No, I appreciate that. I will absolutely take Tsunami. I'll absolutely take Tsunami. That is, I didn't realize it now, but that's what I've been aiming for. That's what I've been trying to achieve. It's like if Tsunami in 2003 covered rugby, that's what I'm going for.
I'm telling you, look. It sicked into the soul. Like it's like we had to bring it back somehow. They might have thrown it away in Cartoon Network, but we were gonna bring it back.
Yeah, exactly. They moved on. Who cares? You know, that's what I want to be, like the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, or what else was on in that era? Is Shaolin Showdown? I loved it.
Yes.
Oh, that was so good.
That was such a good show. Oh, dude, look. That was one of my favorite shows. Between that, it used to be Shaolin Showdown and Jackie Chan Adventures that happened like kind of at the same time.
Yes. Oh man, I was thinking about that the other day. Why was there a show where Jackie Chan was an archaeologist for kids?
Dude,
I never got.
I don't know what it was.
I didn't question it.
It was a show that I never expected. Wait, say that again.
No, just I'll tell you what it was. It was incredible. That's what it was.
Facts.
It was so good.
Facts. Look, it was one of those shows that you didn't know you wanted, and then when you watch it, you're like, "Yo, this is low key good." Because there was a time whenever like everybody was getting an animated show, and you were just like, "All right, it's like whatever, cool." And then you saw. I remember this specifically. I remember seeing the Jackie Chan Adventures, and I was like, "Okay, another celebrity gets a cartoon show, whatever." But I sat and watched it. I'm like, all right, Jackie, Jackie, let's go. All right, Jade, let's go get it.
Yeah. Shendu was the dragon.
Yep.
Something was the big guy. Yeah.
He was.
Died. No. Dude, I was trying to remember details of the Jackie Chan adventures.
I think Shaozin was the main villain, and he was like inside the statue initially. And then he turned into, like, he went inside the other guy. Right.
Because when he got the this is what people tune in for, is people trying to remember the Jackie Chan adventures. When he got the talismans, didn't he? They were all the different Chinese zodiac figures.
Exactly.
And then they all turned him into, and then he came like a guy in a green suit.
Exactly.
What a show.
Dude.
I bet it's on YouTube or something. It's gotta be.
No, 100%. 100%. I think there was a moment they were talking about bringing it back for a little bit, and then they kind of just threw it off. Yeah, I was a little sad. It was a good era.
Yeah, they had those Jackie questions, and they'd always ask him, like, can you do a backflip? And he'd go, yes. That'd be the question.
Exactly. Oh man, good times. Great times. Simpler and great times. Oh, man. All right. Well, we already know we're gonna be friends, brother. We're gonna be friends. I'm letting you know this now.
I'm here. My pleasure. It's a delight.
So, all right. So, I always do this with every superhero. There's an origin story. I know you've told your story a bunch, but you know what? This is the first time you've been on here, so we're gonna pretend like every other interview you've ever done does not exist at this point, and we're gonna start at the beginning. So, tell me, Robbie, how'd you get started with rugby?
So my superhero origin story, when I went to the opera with my parents and they got shot in the alley outside, and I'd always been terrified of rugby balls, but I really decided to embrace it in order to get over that. So I now dress up at night as a massive rugby ball. And it's so, and everyone
Rugby man shall rise.
Everyone in the back alleys looks at me and goes, "That's so stupid." They give up on whatever crime they were doing and just leave it. Just let it go. It's not worth it. The boring answer is just, my parents are Welsh, and so rugby was forced on me from an early age. It was then watching those 2 Grand Slams where it was won in the early noughties. Of 2005 was the one where I kind of went, okay, I sat down and watched my dad, and then I'd watch the odd game. And then 2008, I kind of got really into it, and it became something I was really, really invested and excited by. And I just got more and more into it to the point in which, by the following year, I was tuning into watching Georgia against Samoa on my own. I'd grown so quickly in from it just being something that I watched with my dad to something that I was genuinely obsessed with, and consuming everything I could, reading everything I could, and watching every game I could, watching highlights, and because there's hundreds of years of history of it, trying to learn all of that I could, and so on. So that by the time the 2011 World Cup rolled around, I knew all of the players in the Romanian squad inside out, which was, I now look back and I go, that was insane. That's wild.
Even the Romanian players didn't even know all the Romanian players. I've been trying to get his name for ages.
We played 50 games together. It's too embarrassing to ask at this point. You can't. After 1 or 2 games together, you can maybe hope they bring it up, but at some point you just can't ask.
You're done. Yeah, at that point it's just like, hey man, hey, you know me, pronoun. That's all I got, pronoun.
It's like, is there any chance you could just add me on Facebook or something? I thought we got you on Facebook. But no, we had each other 3 months ago. Oh no, that right. So that narrows you down to 1 of 8 names that I don't really know.
And see, that's why you set yourself up. You're just like, look, man, I got to be the bridge for these people, okay? We're bringing it all together.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I'm going for.
So it's interesting of the factor of, one, just doing that level of research, because I find the history of rugby to be very uniquely interesting, very uniquely complex. So, all right. So first, 2 things. One thing, first, being Welsh. So prior to this Rugby World Cup, when I actually got to know Welsh culture a little bit, I had always, and don't be offended by this, I always assumed Welsh was just kind of very posh English for a long
Right. Okay.
The only Welsh person I knew, the Welshish people that I knew was one of my friends from college who was just so proper, so cool, very, 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 very revolutionary, but so cool. He was Welsh, but it was in my African studies class, and was super dedicated, was pushing. So I was like, I knew her, and I was like, okay, cool. And then the other Welsh person I knew intentionally was my friend from Australia, who's of Welsh descent, but was born in Australia, but also has a very posh accent. So I was always like, okay, if it sounds super nice and on point, I was like, okay, that's Wales. And then whenever it starts to sound a little bit more gritty, I was like, okay, now we're just going to the English UK. We got different variation, just like Australia, New Zealand. I was like, there's some slight differences. And then went to Japan, and we were filming, and we talked to a family who had the Welsh flag and as a full costume. And I was like, wait. So he was just like, hey, we're talking, and I was like, what's a flower? He's like, well, because I'm Welsh. And then his family was like, hey, we got a song. And then they started singing in Welsh. And I was like, time out, hold up. You guys have a language? I was like, wait. You're not just posh English? Wait, hold on. I'm learning too much right now.
That's it. I'm amazed, like, as an American, you'd heard of Wales. Like, we've contributed what? It's literally like, it's Tom Jones, Michael Sheen, and that's about it. That's like the closest we've got to breaking culture.
You know what it is? I've learned that a lot of the medieval culture that we just assume to be English UK is like a lot of low-key Welsh stuff inside there.
Yeah.
So it's always been ingrained, but because we're the US, we're just like, nah, everybody's the same. All right, it's all an island. Unless we got Mel Gibson capping for one, or we got Conor McGregor, it's just all one giant English. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
English slightly south. So like when you after I looked at it, and I'm like looking back, I'm like, like the story of like Prince George and the dragon, that's a Welsh story. Right?
Oh yeah, there's so much of it that's just sort of all over the place and hodgepodge. I say because the Welsh, and like the thing with rugby as well is like so interesting in the way that he fell into that as well. That traditionally, and I don't know, how much you know about it as an area. I don't mean to
teach me, my brother. Teach me.
It's what I'd love to do. So there's like traditionally in England, rugby was spread amongst like posh schools, and it's very much like football is soccer. Sorry, is the like the working class game, and then the posher rugby and cricket are kind of the posher games generally, and that's changing a bit. Whereas in Wales, it was the other way around. And so in the posh schools, it would be traditionally football, soccer. Sorry, yeah, we'll be playing.
Well, you know what? We'll just say association football. We'll make it association football.
Thank you. The thing Ted Lasso coaches now. That's what I know it as. Yeah, and then rugby was kind of the game played in state schools, like state-funded schools. And so that's why we're with us as a culture class, and so my mum was born in England, but my dad very quickly went over on as her being their working class backgrounds to grandparents on both sides worked down the mines type thing. To being like, no, actually, my dad told it to my mum as a class war,
right?
As Wales v England. So there's always been an element of that in those games, which I always found really interesting at that point. And you look at like the 2015 World Cup, I think all three of the Welsh squad went to state schools, and then all but three of the English squad went to to fee-paying schools, to private schools, to what we call public schools. But those are schools we pay money for. So it's always been kind of deeply ingrained in this culture.
Gotcha.
There's something rugby's almost like a way to stick it to the man in a way, and because it's the one thing Wales are good at, it's like there's singing, and I can't sing as well. I'm letting the whole side down there. There's basically
Robbie, are
singing
you sure you're Welsh?
two
You
things
can't sing?
the Welsh
Are you sure? All right.
I know. That's to the point of shame. It's like my family to hide me in a corner at all times. They're like, no, don't look over there. I'm sure there's something he's good at, but it's not. Don't let him open his mouth. Don't let him anywhere near the male voice choirs.
It's just we love him just from a distance, all right? Just keep him in the house for a while. It's okay.
That's exactly it.
I just turned into Oliver Twist all of a sudden. Too many stereotypes.
If you stay in Britain for more than 20 minutes, you will accidentally end up in a Dickens novel. Like it happens. It's not always Oliver Twist, but it's always Dickens.
Basically, so you're saying Charles Dickens was onto something, and it was just trying to lead us slow and steady into.
Exactly. That's exactly what happens.
Hey guys, I just want to take a quick moment to talk to you about the Rugby Outlet Mall. Now, I know you guys have heard me talk about this many times in the show before, typically in the intro, but I wanted to really make sure to get your focus on it because the Rugby Outlet Mall is not just the commerce hub for GiftTime Rugby, but it is an area where we want to be able to create the movement and the symbolic elements that add to the movement. The Rugby Outlet Mall is here so that we can have something to not just to have for the field, but more importantly to be able to have as a regular lifestyle. Because as you know, rugby is not just a sport. It's a whole way of life. It is a movement. And we have everything moving from cultural to your pop culture items like our Rugby Zon shirts and sweaters, as well as representing for the culture as we continue to develop the HBCU Rugby Classic, and we want to continue to support these things because it only grows the sport overall. We are continually growing to be able to make sure that we're connecting with you on a personal level as well as a rugby love. And for you guys that are listening to the podcast and listening to this show, want to let you know that you are going to get 20% off all gear that is under the category of GiftTime Rugby Network and the HBCU Rugby Classic. That is basically the entire store. And all you need to use is promo code GREAUX, GREAUX Rugby. And with that, you guys will get 20% off any clothing that is in the store as of right now. And of course, we're always building up more and more each time. But we want to make sure that you are able to symbolize your rugby faithfulness to the rest of the world and let them know that there is an opportunity to be able to develop, to grow, and to get better each and every time in this sport. So guys, I hope you guys check it out. Definitely go, and you guys can go to www.rugbyoutletmall.com. That is rugbyoutletmall.com. Guys, you're not going to want to miss one bit of this. Now let's get back to it.
Yeah. Speaking as
No, but that's
possible.
awesome. Yo, no, but that's awesome. I didn't realize it was so set up in such an opposing way. So it does make sense. So rugby really is, would you argue, the sport of Wales?
Yeah. And it's the amazing thing of having spent a lot of time living outside of Wales. You know, I've lived in England more of my life than I have in Wales.
Right.
And whenever I go back, I'm then amazed, you know, having lived in parts of England where it's very much a soccer culture. To then be like, oh, there's just like a massive photo of Jamie Roberts on the wall. There's, you know, you walk around and you see rugby balls and you see stuff, and you know, if you ever get the chance to go to Cardiff, it's such a kind of rugby mecca. And the incredible thing about the Millennium Stadium as well is like it is in the middle of town. Like every other sports stadium you go anywhere else in the world is always on the outskirts at best, you know, or you're having to get like drive away to it. Like the Millennium or the Principality is now in Cardiff, you know, massive 80,000 seat stadium right in the middle of town. It's incredible match day. It's playing, and nothing quite like it. Can't move for it. So yeah, it feels so cultural to Wales. I think it's like you know, as for me, as I see in American sports movies, you know, like this is a town where everyone goes to watch high school football.
Right.
It's sort of that kind of like rugby is properly ingrained in Wales, especially internationally.
Yo, okay, I got you. That's legit because I've always found it interesting when it comes to how rugby ends up getting displayed across the world. It's one part, and I love that you're a historian because I feel like I can like deep dive this properly. And I'm gonna call you a historian of rugby. All right, you're no longer Robbie Owens, Squidge Rugby. You're now Robbie Owens, rugby historian. All right, we just erased this whole YouTube thing. I don't know why.
Yeah, forget it. Erase the YouTube thing. Erase the not singing thing. As long as they go together. As long as I'm getting rid of all of it.
We're starting afresh.
Completely from the top.
So, like, I find this is the thing that I've always found very interesting, and I want to get your opinion on this. When it comes to rugby, there's always been this range of we have our niche sport, and obviously we know the separation, the elitism, rugby league split, blah. But the issue has always been, like, rugby has this weird difficulty of being a number one sport in like more than, let's say, 2 countries. I used to say 3, but I feel like it might be 2, maybe 1.5. You know, I might give Samoa a little bit, Samoa and Tonga. So maybe like four countries, but South Pacific, and then like now I'm giving you to Wales. All right, I'm letting Wales have the number 1 spot now. I understand. So for you, based off of how you've been able to read and see rugby as it's kind of developed as historically, what do you think has been one of the biggest issues that rugby has had in terms of moving itself, even in main countries that play it, into that like number 1, 2, 3 spot? Because I find it to be a lot of 4, 5, 6 type primarily.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting and a big question as well. But rugby just has.
That's what we do here, Robbie.
Oh, it's a delight. That and Shaolin Showdown. That's what we do here.
And Jackie Chan. Come on now, we got to combine it all together.
Can't forget Jackie Chan. I think rugby has such a history of shooting itself in the foot. You look at particularly in England, where there was a point in which it grew because it became spread through schools so much, in which it was very close to being the number 1 sport in the country. We're looking back sort of almost about 200 years ago. And then, I mean, there's a few things that happen. Like, one is it gets so caught up in that idea of amateurism as it was for a long time.
Right.
Until 1995, rugby was an amateur sport, which is, it's nonsense. But it became this thing of like it was a moral value, you know. And if you're playing for money, then you're not really honestly embracing the game properly, and blah 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 blah. And so that was what happened with the split, you know, and that drove away clubs in the north of England, and they split off inside their own sport where they could pay them. And a similar thing happened in the US when it was first started to spread. People went, well, it's dumb, you can't pay anyone. No. So the newer codes with what's since become the NFL started to take off because the best athletes could earn money paying it, and it wasn't that different, you know, especially way back at the start. And then so there's been a long tradition of amateurism as a huge problem, and then this kind of like almost like moral thing rugby gets caught up in, you know, and there is a lot of truth and a lot of things I like about you don't talk about the referee. You don't, you know, that whole cliche about you go and, you know, you have a beer for your opposite number after a game and so on, and all of that does remain to a certain degree. But I think there's been something of rugby at times has got caught up in that at the expense of actually growing and actually expanding and actually trying to hit new markets and trying to like grow to more people. Right. And I also think there's this running thing, particularly rugby in England. I think the people that run the RFU in particular think rugby is the biggest sport in the country, and I don't think they've noticed that it is amongst a small number. You know, that they've got a very solidly built niche, but they don't. Sorry, go.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to say, do you think because they fill Twickenham Stadium from every once in a while, they're just like, okay, if we can fill that, clearly we're number 1. Like, we're good.
Yeah, exactly. And because it becomes, basically, rugby in the UK in particular is huge in the Six Nations and World Cups. And it becomes, you know, proper conversation. Everyone talks about it and it becomes a big thing. But then outside of that, like, people don't know it exists. You know, like, most of my friends wouldn't know there's a premiership. Never mind, they wouldn't know, you know, they'd have heard of Leicester Tigers and London Wasps and so on, you know, odd teams. But it's not well known outside of the internationals. I think people assume that these players turn up, they play, you know, a handful of games for their country, and then they hang about for a year until, you know, it's next time for them to turn out and play Italy. And so it kind of disappears in between. And there's always been not that great, other than cities like Gloucester and Leicester, where rugby is a huge deal. There's always been that kind of, it disappears during the period in between, and I don't think a lot of people higher up really like to push it. They kind of assume, oh no, we've got, as you say, our safety, we know we'll fill Twickenham 90% of the times we play there. We know the Premiership is sustainable, you know, your pocket where they will fill 10,000, 20,000 seats stadium every few weeks. So it ends up just in this kind of trap in which it's not quite anywhere for 10 months of the year.
So basically, it's just like we're doing enough to feel like we're getting by, but there's not enough room to be able to actually like excel. But it looks just enough. It's satisfactory. It's almost like it's very settled, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, that's exactly it. Like, it's just this. Nothing's a problem, so why should we try and change anything?
Right.
And the people that then end up, the people that end up in charge are always the same people that have come through the system and it's been fine to them, so they assume it's going to be fine for everyone else. You know,
Right.
and that's a whole problem for that's a wider society issue. But it very much is there in rugby as well, I think.
No, that makes sense, because it was one of those things where, okay, so for me here in the States, we obviously we have a very, for lack of a better word, very celebrity-focused kind of culture, pop culture, of course, entertainment and whatnot. But one thing I kind of looked at was whenever rugby players, especially international rugby players overseas and within UK and former UK colonies, obviously sans the US at this point, but there's always this humility when it comes to stardom, especially then it gets exasperated more with rugby. So it becomes very difficult to know a player who stands out. I think like when we had with the All Blacks, I think especially this last few years, it was easy with the Richie McCaw and Manu Nonu and Dan Carter. And I would basically say between these three people, I would say held it down as the faces of rugby for a long time. Like, don't get me wrong, we know the Brian Habanas as you get deeper in, Ben Wilkerson's. I keep hearing about this honey badger guy, but I only know one honey badger that's in here in the States. So I'm just like, I don't know who you are, fake honey badger, even though you guys actually have real honey badgers there. But you might be in Australia, but we got ours in Louisiana. But you get the few of those names, but it seems so far and spread apart. So then whenever it gets into like the integrating moments of it, and you're talking about premiership, people will name off names, or even worse, a player will be an international player, and I have no clue. I'm like, what game did you even play? Like, what's happening? Like, where's my ease of convenience to be like, okay, you played, I recognize your face, because even if you were a third string, there's something, right? There's something here.
Yeah.
I think
just like rugby really has thrown up. There's a handful of stars like Dan Carter, like Richie McCaw, who are almost too humble and almost boring to become massive stars. Like Dan Carter, handsome guy, best player in the world for a long period, should have been an enormous mega international star. But he's kind of just a very humble, slightly boring man. And he's kind of just too good, and everyone kind of just went like, yeah, right. You ask him a question, he goes like, I tried my best. And there's none of the, you're not getting a documentary like The Last Dance from Dan Carter, right? He's kind of, there's none of that drama. There's no personality to latch onto that really, in terms of like big international stars, and obviously it'd be different with the US, but like they have produced in the last 50 years, Joe Nolomu, right? It's kind of the standout, the big one, the goat, all of that. And then Johnny Wilkinson is like the only other one. He's the only other one who I felt was like a proper household name there. Certainly UK, like everyone knew who Johnny Wilkinson was, and everyone knew what he was like and what kind of guy he was. And you kind of like, obviously opportunities to create a style that don't come around very often. And like if I took basically anyone in this club that I am in right now, the majority of them probably could name you at most 2 rugby players. Like a lot of them probably none, even if they know bits about it. They might have heard Wales won in the Six Nations, but they couldn't tell you any players like team. Being in England right now, in Wales that'd be a different matter. But I think it's a really like good and relevant point that inability to produce a superstar, partly because it's Kiwis and it's Brits who are like almost allergic to being celebrated, has led to rugby struggling to break through, because you can't get in the like, there's no real and it's changing a bit. There's no real basketball scene in the UK.
Right.
But like everyone knows Michael Jordan, everyone knows
Right.
LeBron James, everyone
Right.
Magic Johnson, whoever you want to name. They're all household names that everyone knows. Like
Right.
regardless of whether or not you know anything about, you don't have to know the rules of basketball, the laws, whatever.
There's
They're there. Yeah.
Right.
They're just that, you know, not just who they are. You know they're very good, and you know what they're like as personalities. Yeah. You know, obviously, if we could have a Space Jam sequel with Richie McCaw, that would change things.
That would be maybe not with Richie.
There's an idea.
Maybe not with Richie. I
No.
I wasn't so impressed with his documentary.
Who do you pick? Oh yeah, it's better than the Dan Carter one though, which is just like they really tried to string out that injury in 2011 because it's the only time anything didn't go right for him. So the rest of the documentary is just like him going, yeah, and then I was really good at this, and I was really good at that, and then there's like, you got injured once, there's hammering on that for ages because there's some drama there.
Oh, yo, true story. You know, well, look, with that in mind, was that part of the reason why you set up your channel the way that it did? Obviously, we talked about the humor and the education, and I know there was a space you wanted to fill, but like, was that part of the what you were seeing whenever you were like, okay, I want to break these videos down like this?
Yeah. It's definitely baked in there. The part of it is just this frustration with a lot of rugby coverage that almost all of it, again, certainly in the UK, is aimed at like middle-aged men who drive Land Rovers. It's aimed at like the same demographic, the same market, and I wanted to do something that felt more like it was aimed at something that I would want to watch rather than having to watch because I want to watch the game.
Yeah.
So that was a huge part of it, and then also wanting to do something that had, as I said, like a personality to it, and it had some, you know, like something to say and do, and it wasn't just the same generic stuff you see.
Right.
Exactly. And I realised the tone of my last sentence, droning on, did not sound like that was the case. But that was, as I said, very much baked in that I wanted it to be different and interesting and engaging and the kind of thing that exists. Like, I didn't do that much research into it, but the moment I did look, there's so much stuff like that in, especially American sports, in NFL, in baseball, in basketball, whatever. Like, that kind of thing exists, whereas there is none of that in rugby. Like, it's the same, people are teasing the same audience over and over again. And that's not all rugby is, and it certainly isn't all rugby could be.
No, I agree. It was one of the reasons, even for me, why I got into media. I remember even sitting, because as I talk about it in terms of the UK, the same issues of rugby exists here in the States, obviously. So it is a very cultural problem within this, or cultural issue within the sport itself. Yeah. But it was one of those things where I was like, man, we can make this more entertaining. Like, we need to put like legitimate shine on people and actually make it seem like a real celebration, because I get being humble and within the team sport of playing it on the field, yes, and within a cultural element in terms of trying to create cohesion, not just amongst your teammates, but across all teams, makes perfect sense. But when it comes to your viewing audience, like, they need something. Like, it can't be all good all the time. Or if it can't be all good, you just need to dramatize it a little bit, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I guess one thing I always I find interesting, and I ask you on this one. Well, of course I'm gonna ask you on this one. This is why you're here. No, but
I thought I should talk about Jackie Chan Adventures.
You caught me. You know that was really the whole thing of this. I just disguised the rugby just to be able to be like, look, I need to get people to I need to know who I can go back to Cartoon Network, Toonami, early days of anime. Catch my age, all right? Help me.
Right?
But okay, so let me ask this. So this is something that I experienced that as I became further into the media. So from the outside in, you always hear about media and you watched it, especially for you. I know you had to have been watching it, taking it all in. As you entered into the media space and became more and more known,
there's two narratives that you get. You get the narrative that people always talk about the media. Everything feels like it's personal, or the public perception of what is being presented. And then you start to work with them and you start to involve yourself with them. And now you're getting a different scope. For you, did you have that dichotomy occur? And I guess essentially, like, what did you end up feeling as you've gotten more and more involved? Because you've dealt with it in a deep way in some cases.
Hey everybody, this is just the Bray Train sending out a personal little video diary to all you people out there, where I am going to document me riding most of the way between Singapore and Tokyo for the 2019 Rugby World Cup. Number one is because as part of my business, I do Rugby Lovers Guide to Asia. Number two is I want to bring a lot of exposure to the rugby clubs and the rugby NGOs and charities. Also, on a personal level, I just want to break the funk I've kind of felt I've been into for the last 10 years.
So for the next 12 months, I poured myself into the Singapore to Tokyo campaign, but it still wasn't enough. I needed help, and it came from Louisiana.
We in Singapore, baby!
Gift from GiftTime Rugby USA is a extroverted tour de force.
Say hi to my people out there.
Which makes up for my social shortcomings.
This place is unbelievable.
No!
It's not just it's like
what's he supposed to do?
Morons, a bunch of morons.
Guys, picture with me. Picture. Australian. G'day, mate. You can use my phone. But what unites us is a hunger for adventure.
Off to KL, Kuala Lumpur.
Woo! Gift, where are we?
We're in
Mount Fuji, baby!
Our love of Asian rugby culture.
1, 2, 3, Central!
Rugby is starting to develop here in Cambodia for women as well.
Valkyries, the mighty, mighty Valkyries!
And allows us to overcome incredible obstacles.
It's just got so thick. It's just so thick here. Now it's pouring down rain again.
But coming to this Thai-Cambodia border has renewed all the aggression.
So the whole thing's gone buggered. I got hit.
What?
I got tail-ended by a motorbike.
I can just feel that knee, that ankle just going in all the wrong directions under the weight of my body. But that doesn't compare to the pain of failure.
I'm dying. Oh, I'm dying.
And that's what I've been worried about this whole time. We're out here, we're running out of energy, we're running out of money, and we're feeling isolated. And yet at that critical moment, friends, family, sometimes complete strangers come on board. Before you know it, we're back in the game.
Tokyo, here we come!
Making a comeback. 4 weeks, 2,300 miles, 5 countries.
After all the trials and tribulations, this ride had become deeply personal. All that mattered now was getting to that Rugby World Cup game in Tokyo.
Yeah, buddy. All right. Be easy. Go check out redearthfilms.vhx.tv to get your copy of Singapore to Tokyo any way you can. That's redearthfilms.vhx.tv.
Yeah. And I think I feel quite lucky in the fact that what I do is so separate and individual, and in a lot of ways I'm not that closely linked to the actual people that are doing a lot of the other sort of rugby coverage. Right. And I still feel like I'm this sort of, and I think that's part of why people connect with it, because it feels more like a fan doing it. It feels more like someone, it's someone in the, like you always have if you watch, I don't know, it's the same as watching it in a bar, in a pub or something, and there'll always be someone who thinks they know what they're talking about in the corner. Right. And it's kind of, I don't know if it's people are used to that guy being there. So every now and again when they go, and I'm not saying I do know what's going on necessarily, but every now and again, like law of averages says I must be right occasionally. I'm getting lost here. Sorry, this train of thought. But yeah, I think there's. I also, because I said I have done plenty of stuff for a lot of big broadcasters in this country and in others as well.
Right.
Which has been an interesting thing, as you say, because you fall into that. You're now the thing you've critiqued in past, and you are now the thing that. Yeah, they're so easy to pick up on and to talk about, and to, you know, in the way like quite recently, a couple of weeks ago, I posted a Twitter thread about the, you know, the way BT Sport who broadcast the Premiership and the European Cup in the UK, about how they handled the Paddy Jackson situation. Not to get into that, but like they clearly have a policy of not talking about what happened with, you know, but you know, not to skim over it. Like he was found not guilty of rape a handful of years ago, but there's like all kinds of really damning stuff about him, and there's a lot of things that definitely did happen that we know, but they clearly have a policy of not talking about that. And I think that's kind of irresponsible thing, because if you are in the media and you're in that position, the audience watching that is a very different, watching rugby every week is a very different audience to the one watching perhaps, you know, like watching a feminist documentary, or watching even something like Promising Young Woman, which is a thriller designed to reach a wider audience, but still you talk about the same issue. You've got like almost a responsibility, I think, when you've got an audience. It's something I've learned, you know, with growing one, that you can try and talk about different issues. And so I've, you know, not to say I'm necessarily there on that, but it's something I very much feel
there's a responsibility
aim for. Yeah, exactly. And so I know it's easy to ignore that and to not look at that. It's something I with every kind of growing follower, with everyone else that subscribes, I think more and more about that, and more about, I feel like, you know, I'm not necessarily doing enough, and I'm trying to do as much as I can, and that's something that's very much in my head. And every time I do something on, you know, I've done bits for Scrum 5, which is kind of the big rugby show in Wales, and when I've done bits for them, I did one bit for BT last year, I've always had it in my mind of like, what am I saying with this? What am I doing with this? Because what am I doing that someone else wouldn't necessarily, or what would I? So I realized it's got heavier than I think you probably have to.
No, I love it. I love it because it conceptualizes the idea of being able to put purpose to action. So what ends up being something that seems very novelty, like it is with rugby, you end up finding out that there's this other level of impact that you can take, and now you're just like, okay, well, I don't want to waste my opportunity here. Like, I want to make sure that this is going to something good and not just being novel, because there is, and I'll even say for myself, like, I know in doing this, and I'm a very small channel. I'm slowly starting to try and develop myself over time, but you know, you start to realize that you are actually being listened to, which I think is a bigger concept than we realize. And when people actually listen and actually take into what's being said, you want to make sure that you're dropping something that is meaningful, which is one of the reasons why I found it very interesting with rugby, because there's such a, ironically, for it being a sport, there's such a level of culture that goes wrong in integration of culture that goes into it on so many layers that it feels involved. And I don't know if it's different. I do know, and it feels different than the other sports, maybe because it still feels like it's still infantile, even though it's been around for so long. But the range, the media range, the cultural range, like, is now starting to kind of ripple, almost like it was waiting for this time of social media to be able to hit. But you want it to be bigger than self. If you just do it novelty, you're just doing it for self, and you kind of feel like an asshole. And then if you say it more, you just want to be like, I want to give more, but I also don't want to sound like an asshole or unknowing.
Right. And there comes that point in which you can, you know, as I have now, I've made a lot of videos about rugby, and there comes a point when you go, I just keep making puns on the word ruck, you know? Like, what am I doing? What difference is it? What am I saying? What's happening from this? You know, and so it's, I don't know, make it sound like just.
Hold up, you're breaking up a little bit.
Like, I was, oh, sorry, okay. yeah, and that wouldn't sound like it's just me, but like I don't. If I'm doing something or in some way, impact, just speak to other people beyond just people enjoy hearing say, "Scott played last weekend." So can you hear me?
Hold on. You broke up all the way, and this is such an important point. I want to be able to hear it. No, it's not your fault. It's just a situation.
Yeah, am I right?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you all right now.
Okay. Yeah. So I just go back to roughly where I was and try and remember what I was.
Yeah. Basically, you can only make videos so much. Like, there's only so much you can make of the word the ruck, the pun out the word ruck.
Yeah, exactly. And as much as anything, like, you start to wonder, why am I doing this? What am I doing? And I don't want to make it sound about me, because it's obviously not. But like, is the world a better place? Beyond, people obviously going, well, I want to see that video about why Scotland played well at the weekend. Like,
right.
Is anything better for me doing this? And it's something I think about a lot. Of like, I don't think I'm doing enough. And I try to do more on women's rugby to try and raise a profile there and try and make that sort of normalized almost. And I think that, again, I don't want to give myself too much credit for that, but like, I've seen people say they started watching because they watch my videos and that and so on. That's great. And the video the video made on Roy Francis. Yeah, the video made on Roy Francis last year, who was a guy who was this huge revolutionary, and like, if you look back on it, one of the most important people in the history of sport. But he was completely airbrushed out of history because he was black, and just like he was never talked about. And I did a video about him and about then led into other areas of the sort of conversation that like Ruga Monyu, Mara Toje, Ben Obano, etc. have had in the UK.
Right, I remember that.
And it's things like that of just, again, phrasing it like that makes it sound like I'm doing it for myself, and I'm not. But there is this level of just like latent guilt of what am I doing if I'm spending so much of my time and effort on this and nothing's coming of it. And it doesn't always have to be that grand. It doesn't have to be a video about this topic. It can just be, occasionally a throwaway line or something that might, help validate or invalidate something. Might be just like, the Israel Folau situation, just like mentioning that repeatedly, hopefully helps some. And I've, had messages from people saying, like, I started to think after Israel Folau that all of rugby felt the same way as him because people weren't talking about it, and that kind of thing. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, there wasn't a cutoff. But that's exactly. I was just gonna say, I completely get what you're trying to. I get what you're saying exactly. It's an interesting dynamic. Again, it goes back to how much I'm realizing the impact of my voice actually goes. Even for me, I remember specifically, like, so it sounds bad, but I'm gonna say it anyways because F it, I can. So like when I was commentating, like I tried commentating. I've done everything. In terms of media within this program. Hey, look, man, we out here trying to figure out where the scoop is. All right, let's try and get it in here. But I remember when I was commentating games, and whether people like it or not, I mean, look, I don't really care about that as long as we're getting the information out. But after a while, I was like, all right, man, I am basically saying the same thing over and over again. It's nice to be able to commentate, but I'm just like, all right, look. I know we're going to get to the ruck. We're going to set up another phase. All right, then we're going to get this ball out. We're going to look for the tackle. They're going to either open it up, and we're going to go inside. We're going to close it up. We're going to go to the outside. And then we're going to see either an athletic play or somebody's going to tackle. Like, I can basically run by the same 10, 15 sentences over and over. Not to say that it diminishes rugby, but again, it's a game with rules. At some point, once you understand the scope of it, it's going to be a limit. So it was just like, all right, I don't find this component of it to be all that interesting. So then when it came to like rugby culture, and it's one of the reasons I started the podcast, it was like, all right, I have a greater interest in knowing the people who are doing rugby or have utilized rugby, because you get to see this wider dynamic. And a perfect example was we went to, my friend and I, we went to Asia, we did this documentary, and we went to a bunch of nonprofits across Southeast Asia because we were bike riding through it. And I'd go to a nonprofit and you see people utilizing rugby and rugby legitimately impacting the culture because it completely changed the mindset of how those kids were. Right. And you're just like, yo, okay, this is purposeful. Like, the game might be limited to these rules, but the resonating effect now has greater impact than just what are we doing here on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean that is so set up for a movie with Kevin Costner. That is perfect. That's amazing. That's at the end of the day, that's not what sports should be. You know, should it not be to try and, as much as it's fun and it's, you know, it's an entertaining thing to watch or whatever, should it not be about trying to better yourself, become the best version of yourself, and try and offer a means of escape, be it from whatever you were doing 2 hours ago, or be it from whatever situation you're in life-wise. Is that not the whole point and the worth of it? You know, that you can change people and change environments and situations through it.
No, and that's it exactly. Like, and that's what makes it so special. So whenever we take it from that aspect, so for me, you know, it came where it was like, oh, dude, I'm listening to this kid who has never been out of his neighborhood, started playing rugby, traveled overseas, whole world blown. You know, we coach, guy, never played rugby, had a tough upbringing, started coaching. Yo, world changed because purpose and seeing kids. You see the story over and over and over again. You know, Kevin Costner coming through, probably gonna low key get in a Brad Pitt. You know, you gotta get a little saving grace. Idris Elba come over the top, and then Denzel walking through, and then we're just getting everybody. We're just bringing everybody into it. All right?
like a coaching Avengers. Like get every great sports coach from movies together. That's why I want Coach Carter and Ted Lasso together. Just for like 10 minutes, just to see how they'd vibe together.
Dude, I think you set up like my next fan fiction right there. Like I need to see I need to see the voice of Samuel L. Jackson coming from Jason Sudeikis' Ted Lasso. Oh man, now that's a conversation right there. That right there needs to happen.
I say, right, we just take this clip as recorded, and you just without any words, just email it directly to like Spielberg@Hollywood.com and just see what happens. Because I'm sure, I am confident, there is no way you can say no to this idea.
No, I'm already seeing highest box office and streaming all time. Done.
Absolutely. That's it. Let's get everyone on board. World record broken. It somehow manages to become the highest grossing film of all time. And Netflix has, despite being on Netflix same day, everyone has seen it on Netflix and gone, that was so good, I'm going to go and pay to see it in a cinema.
I think we got a winner here, Robbie. I think we got a winner here.
Just sign the contract and sign the checks.
Done. All right. Yo, I love it. Yo, actually, you know what? And that even takes me to that next part. Dude, I saw this summer you were trying to do movie reviews. All right. I found one of the most interesting things about this sport is the absolute utter lack of movies. Now, don't get me wrong. There has been movies being made, and I've gotten I've made it an active purpose to try and watch as many movies. I think I even made a top 8 list and then started going. Documentaries galore, but like a feature film, almost non-existent. Almost non-existent. For you, I'm sure you've watched. Have you watched? Let me not say I'm sure you have. I know you're the historian, but I'm gonna not assume for you. All right. I respect your choices. No, but for you, have you seen a lot of rugby movies?
Yeah, I've seen both of them. Yeah, that's
all 1.25 of them. I think we got a scene in one movie, and then I think that was just about it. We got Invictus, and then it was like a quarter scene.
But there's the scene in The Departed. There's a scene in one of the Monty Python movies. There's a scene in The World's End, the Simon Pegg Cross movie. And that's about it. Then you're about done. It's
Yep. I think we made about 1/3 of a movie out of just that.
Yeah, that's it. There's a really lovely Irish film called Handsome Devil, which is about like that's about it. That's about the one good one. There's Invictus, which is obviously Invictus. That's grand, great, well done. You know, 3 cheers for Matt Damon. And then after that, you kind of go. As I said, there's like 2 interesting indie movies. There's Handsome Devil, which I like. Which I think is a lovely little Irish film. And then there's a French movie called Mercenary.
Mercenary. That was a really good movie. Mercenary was really awesome. I didn't realize. Actually, it was after that movie where I was like, I didn't realize Polys were being played like that. Like, I never knew. I just knew, Polynesians play rugby, but I didn't know, they were being pushed around like that. Like, that was a wild movie. And I watched it all in subtitles. I was like, that's how good this is. I'm actually willing to listen to French. I know that was racist, but it's okay.
I think that's a saying, and it's a very British expression, but it's not racist if it's against the French. That's right. That's the rule.
World rules. That is agreement. But that was a dope movie.
Yeah. But that's about it. That's and that's like the one movie that's actually about professional rugby that feels, it's like the kind of, it feels right-ish,
Yeah.
And it's actually, as I say, it's about the state of professional rugby, and it is about the fact to say that the Polynesian lads are just being played and used left, right, and centre, because they know they can try and ship another one off a boat from Tonga and just hope that's, he's big as well. And there's all kinds you can read. There was an article by Johnny Beattie on the 15 quite recently, who's former Scotland player, who wrote a big tell-all piece on what it's actually like at French clubs and how badly players from all over are being treated. Because there's money in rugby, but not as much as some people think.
I remember specifically looking up the money when it comes to rugby, and then I looked at the money when I was like, oh wait, Pro 12 has the most, and I was like, you guys are making still a fraction of what the last level, the newest player on an NFL team is making. Now I'm like, my God.
Like, Christian Wade was amongst the best paid players at Wasps, and he is getting paid like 3 times that to not play, to be in the training squad. The Bills. Like, that's ridiculous. The sheer disparity. Like, when we talk about, Dan Carter's just signed to be the highest paid player in the world, and you go like, that's like a reserve in Premier League football money. That's the highest paid player of all time. He barely factor in most other sports.
Right. No, I remember whenever Dan Carter got his deal, and it was like $3 million over 4 years or $3 million over 2 years, and I was just like, guys, like what's going on here? Like you have literally the 6th largest sport in the world. You have the number 2 team contact sport in the world. You are literally cornering the market in talent, and these guys are just barely getting over 300, which, I mean, to regular people, I know it's a lot, so it's not like we're saying. But in terms of sports dynamic at playing at the highest level, you would assume, especially if you're a money developer, that after 20-something years, like, you should be able to be pressing a little bit. It's not like you don't have a blueprint.
Yeah, exactly. But then that ties back to your question about rugby shooting itself in the foot. There's all kinds of stories of, like, rugby league having been professional for 60 years and similar things with, football's almost always been professional, soccer, in the UK.
Associated football. We've agreed.
Association football.
We're just going to call it AF. It's all right. It's AF.
Kickball. AF. But there's all kinds of stories of, like, RFU officials when they first signed the thing to allow it to become professional, refusing to meet with people from other sports and going like, no, we'll be fine. Like, I ran a sausage business in Gloucestershire. I'll be fine running, as you say, like the 6th biggest professional sport in the world. It's exactly the same thing. It's no real different. Just like money goes in one end, comes out the other side. It's fine. something I can treat as a lump of meat in the middle, whether that's a sausage or whether it's a Polynesian player, you know, same deal.
No, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay.
No question.
I don't. They both have meat, right? So that works the same.
No more questions. No more questions, Your Honor. Let's move on.
But no, it is interesting within that dynamic, and it goes back to, you know, again, trying to figure out, you know, what it does. So whenever it comes to your voice, and obviously as you continue to develop within this, because obviously I love the fact you're looking bigger than just the moment, and I expect nothing else. Look, anybody who's going to learn, every Romanian rugby player for the 2011 Rugby World Cup, like, I expect you to be larger than just, yo, the videos that you make, even though it creates the tunnel in. And I'm actually going to ask you like 3 more questions, which means it's going to be like 6 more questions. But, but you know, I go, the one part that I like to talk about then comes back down to the business side. And I think you're starting to enter into this world. You've entered into it and starting to understand it more. So as a media person, you know, you're now starting to figure, I know you stepped away from your position at UPS, by the way, kudos to you.
Oh, yeah.
I used to work at FedEx, and I can never trust a delivery driver ever again.
Mate, yeah. Tell me about it.
I was like, you guys do not care about the packages. You know why I know this? Because I threw the hell out of those packages, and I did not care about a single one of them.
Yeah. You are just waiting to get to the next delivery. There is no handle repair there. Like, oh, yeah. I do not miss that at all.
Were you a driver or were you a package handler? Or?
So they had me. Is one of the 6 more questions. Yeah, I was on. Basically, there was a guy driving, and then I'm going to actually deliver the packages.
Oh wow! Oh, you guys were doing it the old school double school. Like you throw the packages out, he just drives. Yo, you guys are efficient. They don't care about the UPS drivers out here. They say you got one. There's only one. We only need one. Just you go find us and take it out.
So they did it over like Christmas and busy periods. They'd have 2 people there, and then because I was so efficient, they were like, "Well, actually, it's fine, keep them on." And I said, "No."
It's like, you know, guys, I'm good. Like I'm good. Yeah, we don't need to do this anymore.
I've got to go and sit in a corner. My family are really ashamed of the fact I can't sing. Do you mind if I'm going to miss this one? I might see you for another later, but probably not. Let's be honest.
that was the one. I think I pass on this one. There might be some things working against me on that one. No. So I love that. So okay. So moving out from as the UPS delivery, UPS associate. I'm just gonna go there because it seems like it was very, very tasking. And then now you kind of moved into to now just focus on the media part. You don't have to say numbers because I don't want you to throw out, and we all have different sensibilities with that. But what have you discovered as being able to find ways of being able to continue to fund your projects?
Yeah, I think the YouTube ads thing is such a weird, like you can't set goals by it. You can't set up that what you're going to be getting consistently. And the other thing is I made myself a rule when ever since I've been sort of writing, doing stuff since I was about I've been kind of doing as long as I could, basically, as long as I pick up a pencil, I guess. But I always kind of had this rule of I don't want to do anything that I think, firstly, that someone else could do better, but also just someone else could do, and I wouldn't be bringing anything different or original to.
Right.
So that's always been in my head. So I will go, okay, I know I could do, a video on this thing, and it might get some views, but I would find it dull and frustrating, and I don't see the point in that. But the really useful thing's been Patreon, which has been the fact that I think partly because I've stuck to that kind of system and thought process, and because I think, as I said, people connect with it because it's essentially a fan, that's what I'm doing. And people see, I don't know if it's something in themselves or something, they think they can kind of connect with in them. I've been really lucky in how people have helped it on Patreon, and I couldn't be doing it full time in the way I am without. So that is yeah, that is hugely enormously appreciated. And sometimes I do just almost wake up in the morning and just think, I can't believe that so many people do help me on that, you know. And I kind of take anything else I can bring in from YouTube ads, from doing odd bits for more traditional media outlets as bonuses on top of that. But yeah, it almost sounds like a horrible cliche, but I kind of can make this sustainable because it really connects with people, and that's something I'm very appreciative and I don't take for granted.
Yo, dude, I love that. I mean, it's so generic. My God, no, I'm joking. but that's real. I love that because it poses, it lets you appreciate the community impact that you're having, and the returned community appreciation. And I have to imagine that it adds to the motivation to always want to keep creating, because you're like, yo, people really like the old Sally Fields things. You love me. You really love me. like this is like, oh, you guys actually, you guys watch? You guys see this? Really?
As we established, my family are very forward in not loving me for the whole singing thing, so I need this. I need this badly.
They were going to Oliver Twist you, all right? They were just super. they had you under the cupboard like Harry Potter because you were like, no singing. We found you on the cobblestone, all right? We read from Charles Dickens, so we got the parenting book. No, it's really super dope. Like that's awesome that you are able to be able to have that. And again, it's so many people, and so even with the Patreon, it's got to feel in some type of way. As you continue to develop, and obviously we kind of talked about being able to be bigger than himself. Is there a direction that you have envisioned other than, we talked about a little on-air stuff that you've been doing as well too, but is there, like, now that you've seen the world open, because it's easier to say I didn't expect it at the beginning because you don't know what you don't know until you know it. Right? But now that you've seen a lot bigger and you see that you have something that people open up to and you can use it as a battering ram, what do you see for yourself moving forward? Or what do you hope for? What do you look to intend?
I mean, obviously, I really enjoy and appreciate everything I'm doing at the minute, even if, often it's a lot of work during Six Nations or something. But like I'm looking forward to hopefully taking on some sort of non-rugby projects and trying to look at other stuff as well. Nice. And start branching out a bit into wider things. So I've got a few things I've been working on in sort of periods in between videos.
Let's go.
However long. Some things have been in my head for a long time. Some things that are just popping up. Some things that I've sort of seen an opportunity on. So I've been trying to work on things. Hopefully, have stuff starting to here and next year, so that's an exciting thing. But as I say, like, I do want to keep. Hopefully, the rugby stuff keeps getting bigger and more exciting, and I know I get better at the analysis and all of that the more and more I do it. So just trying to keep grinding until it's as good as it can possibly be.
Yo, I love it. You know what your next one is supposed to be, though, right? Olympics. All right, we gotta cross paths or the French Rugby World Cup. I gotta depend if I want to go back to the Rugby World Cup. I'm gonna be honest with you. I wasn't as sold on it. Like, don't get me wrong, the environment was nice, but it's so limited media-wise. Like, the most fun that I ended up having doing that was ironically it wasn't ironic. It's very actually characteristic for me. But it was talking to the people outside before they went into the games. That was super. Crowd work was amazing. People are dope.
That's it. That's the stuff. That's the stuff that's like, I intend to go to every World Cup till I die. Just because, like, when I was at one of the games of 2015, someone brought a ball and, like, crowds outside, like, they sort of kicked it in the air and everyone started, like, chucking it about and joining in and doing little bits. And, like, at one point, a full scrum formed of just strangers, like, bending over. Like, a few of them, like, having to have people hold their pints and so on. And it's that kind of thing that I went, like, this happens once every 4 years. And no one else will ever see it. Like, it's those magic moments in between.
Yes!
And, like, running into someone in 2019, it was like, he recognized me, came up to me, it's like, I was just in a restaurant, and Joshua Tuisoba, one of the Fijian team, he's like, I just saw him in there, like, after the previous day. So I'd just seen him in this restaurant while I was having my lunch, and he just ordered 2 steaks to himself. And it's like those kind of things. Those are the things that that stick with me from the World Cup. You know, those are things I like, rather than the the media stuff, even the rugby itself, like whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's the kind of communal love of it.
Exactly. Look. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I went to the game. Don't get me wrong. I went to the USA game, so they have a different energy. But I still went to Australia-Wales game, which was that was actually real energy. I felt, and it was just like I liked the game, but I found myself being like, I really just came out here to do. And, you know, whether Rugby World Rugby will allow me to do this again or not. But it was just like, I did crowd work to basically just watch the games for free. But I was just like, I really just kind of prefer to just do that. I don't know if I really needed the media passes to go ahead and do that next level. Like, I mean, there might be something, maybe I maybe need to learn more preliminarily, like beforehand and do it. But it was just like, when I got there, I was just like, we can't take any camera shots inside, I have to just write. I don't want to write. I came here to video stuff. But Robbie, man, dude, I honestly appreciate it. Just let people know where they can find you, even if they can't find you, but let people know where they can find you. Let's go.
So it's at Squidge Rugby on Twitter, on YouTube as well. If you want to search Squidge Rugby, and then I'm also at Squidgy Go on Twitter if you want to see me complain about Peter Rabbit rather than actually rugby. And then at Squidge Rugby in most places.
Dope. Yo, Robbie, man, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it.
Cheers for having me. No, I really enjoyed that. That was great.
Yo, Robbie, man, big thanks to you. I really do appreciate it. Yo, and guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know it was a little hard to hear on some of it, but, yo, we had some great dimes, great conversation, and, yo, it's all love. It's all family out here. But please, guys, we had some great episodes still. Definitely check out some of our other podcasts. Like last time we spoke with Karima Prince, who was the captain for Prairie View A&M Women's Rugby, a.k.a. the very first HBCU Women's Rugby team of all time. We talked to Akinola Raymond of Rugby United New York, but also social media star, TikTok and Instagram. Talked to Kirill Guthrie, the president and founder of the James G. Robertson and Pat Sullivan Foundation, helping to create HBCU Rugby. We talked with Marquise Goodwin. Definitely listen to that one. We've had Robert Perry, head coach of Curaçao. We've had Jess Nelson, head coach of York Rugby out in Canada. Keishan Downs, the vice president of Jamaica Rugby Union. Had my guy Ryan Ginty, the guy who's been doing the broadcast for MLR, runs one of their top shows on the Rugby Network and was just doing the broadcast over for the College Rugby Championships. We had Sarah Alice Saul, former manager and for the national team. We had Katie Sadlier, the general manager for women's rugby for World Rugby. I mean, we got Erica Mori, we got Gabby Pellegrini. We've had so mso people. I'm just looking through the list and it's just so impressed. So impressed. Except for, I feel like I'm missing one. No, there we go. Yeah. So guys, definitely go and check this out. I want to thank you guys all for taking the time to listen to this thing. Please, I hope that you're happy, I hope that you're healthy, and I hope you know you're highly favored. Till next time, cheers.